Hey everyone, this is Nitro. In this video, I thought I would teach other players how to analyze pilots themselves, because a lot of videos are just giving out tier lists saying which pilots are good and that you should draw for, but they don't really break down how to understand pilots yourself and how they function. So yeah, that's the purpose of this video. Okay, so let's begin. So first of all, certain things about pilots are pretty obvious, like their talent. Winston is widely recommended for building because of the short circuit talent that will cause enemies to lose 7% of their max hit points as fixed damage. It can make a lot of endgame fights very easy because 7% is a massive amount. Okay? But there's other aspects to pilots that are more subtle, and a lot of them come from the Bionic computer and neural drive. So one of the reasons you need to kind of analyze the pilots yourself most likely is because my understanding is endgame content often requires you to bring like 20 pilots. Okay? I'm not even joking, 20 of them. Because there's some battles that are like a series of battles, and each battle you can only deploy 4 pilots. So with 5 battles, that's 20 pilots right there. You can reuse the mechs, is my understanding. Like you can deploy the pilot and then change them to a higher level mech, but you can't reuse the pilots in these. So with that stated, let's go into how you would analyze a pilot yourself. And so first things first, the obvious thing is the Bionic computer, like the skills that you unlock, right? And it's really the skills as well as the crystal neurons that define a pilot. The crystal neurons are actually they have quite a surprising effect, okay? Because these special skills are unlocked in the neural drive section, okay? But they often are game changers. Here's an example, okay? Grant and Gareth are both healers, right? Mechanics, and they really serve very similar purposes in the early stages of the game. They have the generic heal skill. Other than that, they are mostly there to maybe launch out some attacks. The only real difference you can see between the two is Gareth is more ranged weapons focused. So he would use weapons like light rifles and sniper rifles. And by comparison, Grant has a lot of assault. So he uses shotguns, machine guns, or heavy machine guns. Really, it would be heavy machine guns because he reduces their weight. Okay. So that's more or less the real difference. Like, I suppose there is the talent difference where if Grant heals someone, they get a damage buff of plus 15%, whereas Gareth, when he heals someone, they get armor care, so their damage taken is reduced, but nothing really is nothing too significant, I would say. This changes though when you start unlocking skills. For example, Grant really gets his core skill over here, Renovate. It costs 4 action points and it's a generic heal skill with one little interesting aspect. The target also gains 2 action points. So basically what this skill does is it's transferring action points from from Gareth into the character he's healing. Okay. It's kind of hard to use in the early stages when your action point capacity is capped at 5. But as it increases, the skill can become more and more useful. So that's about Gareth. Okay? Grant gets a very interesting effect from the Bionic computer in the later stages. It doesn't really unlock until I think this 4th sector. Yeah, the 4th neural drive sector. But as soon as you have that unlocked and you activate it, the first point skill, what it does is this. After performing active repairs, triggers a re-attack, so you can launch active attacks again. So for this re-attack, you can't use repair skills, and you cannot move before attacking. Okay. But effectively, what this means is Grant can heal an ally, then launch out an attack himself. And he can do this every single turn once you have Crystal Neuron 4 unlocked and put 1 chip into it. Okay. Which is very, very different from like a dedicated single character healer like Gareth. And of course, 7 is totally unique with the Pachi mechanic. Okay. So that kind of these kind of little changes are important, because if I look at Dana, let's say, Dana is really good early on. Really popular character, great for attacking and dishing out damage, but she really falls off later on, right? As like a damage dealer, she just gets skills like aiming, where you can ignore a large shield, but she's generally not able to kill someone with that skill anyways. Like, heavy mechs are really tough, okay? And her end skill, her final skill, is like a sniper rifle shot that shoots 2 times. Each shot does 1 times damage, and only one will hit the aiming mode, while the other will hit a random body part. So basically, not great, is what I'm saying. Most of these skills are not good for taking out enemies. Winston, by comparison, he has the sophisticated scientist effect, and as a sniper, he does a little bit more damage, right? He has things like, when triggering the vigilant shot, damage of that shot is increased. Things like dealing 1.2 times damage to the enemy, and if the target has the short circuit effect already, it'll inflict it on all enemies within 1 adjacent tile after combat. Okay. So little effects that essentially make him superior to Dana as the game continues. Right? Like this one, for example, you can hit a 1x4 line ahead, doing AoE damage to all those targets in a line. Just little things. And of course, the debuffs that he can apply. Armor down, hit rate down, dodge down. So I highlight this because there are certain characters that seem mostly useless in the early stages to become decent later on. And one of them is Allison, who I'm currently building. Allison starts off with like the skills that can prioritize legs and prioritize arms, which is probably not as critical when you can directly target like the torso with characters like Hong and Sylvie, right? Or even with characters like Winston and Dana that can shoot any body part. But Allison does eventually unlock a skill that lets you enter aiming mode, right? So when you can reach that level, that's when Allison starts becoming good, or a solid character. And the reason I say Allison is pretty solid is because of her talent. So once you can start choosing the body part you hit, that's when her exposure talent starts to shine, right? Because if you choose to hit the torso, it can increase the chance for the affected part to be hit by 30%. So all other characters who are targeting that unit will also have a higher chance of hitting the torso. So that's when she starts becoming better. Okay. Ultimately though, I would not build 20 characters right now. Keep in mind we're going to continue to draw for pilots, right? So just build the characters you need, right? And the characters you would want to build especially would be based on what you're doing in border conflict right now. Like kind of what party you run, stuff like that. For myself, I tend to run a lot of light mechs. So I have Sylvie, Frida, Hong built, running 2 mechs, typically, right? I have multiple mechanics built, in large part because I was worried about healing. But you definitely need at least 2 mechanics, so that one can be put in reserve if they're injured. I have multiple tacticians built, with Naomi, Cicero, as well as even Lily, a B rank character, and I have them built because for the same thing. If one of them is injured, I can rotate in another one. And of course 2 snipers right now in Winston and Dana, largely because I'm running a medium mech as a sniper, not a light. So Allison is a pilot for light mechs. So she's a capable sniper, but it doesn't really work out for the border conflict mode as a result. So yeah. And then lastly, Frida and Kaiden use very similar weapons, shotguns and pile drivers and so on. So Kaiden can be leveled up, but again, I'm not a big fan of him, largely because I don't like the skills he has. A lot of his skills target the lowest hit point part, and the lowest hit point part is frequently not the torso. Okay? but he is a solid option if you, in terms of replacing one of your characters that you're using. Okay. Lastly, I do have Emily built, and Emily is built largely for the border conflict as well. It's more just, you can only bring 5 mechs, okay? And you often have a selection that's higher than 5 mechs. So sometimes, rather than trying to replace a pilot, I might choose to bring Emily, you know, in her heavy mech. And if she gets wounded or whatever, you know, so just entirely replace the mech rather than just replacing the pilot. So that's why I have her built. Okay? She doesn't participate in every fight, but when she does participate, she has her own mech. Alright, so the last thing I need to mention about... Sorry, there's 2 more things I should mention about pilot building. Number 1, okay? In terms of the Bionic computer, right? You need to... in terms of the neuro drive, once you have unlocked each of these sectors, in order to activate the effects of that sector, you have to hit either a certain amount of CP points in that sector. So the first effect unlocks at 1 CP, second effect at 4 CP, third effect at 7 CP. Only 1 and 4 can be unlocked at the beginning when the hero is first has this sector unlocked, and you're capped at 4 CP. So that's why I have 1, 2, and 1, you know, 1, 2, and 1, and so on and so forth. To increase the amount of CP you have in each sector to 7, you actually need a special item. And it's at the higher levels where it unlocks. And this special item is that Bionic Superconductor that we can sometimes trade for and is obtained from events. There's very, very few ways of getting these. So you gotta be very careful about who you use them on. Alright. So these sectors will unlock the CP cap from 4 to 7. And then you may be wondering why I don't have these sectors unlocked yet. Well, it's because I can't even get CP3 items right now, right? I can only get 1 and 2. So there's no real reason to use it just yet. Unless I want to equip like unless I want to equip 3 6 CP usage items onto a character. But that still doesn't really unlock the final special effect. So, how do you get those chips then? Well, pretty obvious, right? Expansion ops, under simulated battles, this is where you get those chips. Right? CP1 and CP2 are pretty easy to unlock very quickly. The CP3 though doesn't come for a while. For example, the first sector, you get CP3 chips when you reach sim level 6-1, or you complete sim level 6-1. I've only cleared 5-1 right now, so not even at 6-1 yet. As for the second set of chips, beta sector, I guess, this sector doesn't get the CP3 chips all the way to sim 9-1. And then the final sectors, the final 2 sectors, well, that first sector only gets CP chips at 8-1, and the second sector, it doesn't even unlock until you clear battle 10-1, right? So just to get like a feel for this. So basically what that kind of means is the first sector you'll reach is probably the first one. Then you'll actually reach this one first, sim 8-1, before you reach sim 9-1. So just keep that in mind about when you do start using the items to unlock the 7 CP cap on your characters in Bionic Computer. Because you may unlock it and then realize you cannot get the chips to actually activate the special effects. Now, the final thing I will mention though is there is an interesting aspect to all this that I just mentioned, which is that weirdly enough, I actually do have a few chips that are that provide CP3. Sorry, whenever I say CP3, I think basketball. Chris Paul. Sorry, going completely off topic though. So yeah, you can see that I have a few chips here in the first sector that are providing 3 CP, which is, I believe, is short for core power. Okay. So these chips I actually got from dispatch missions. Right? So just to be clear, for every dispatch mission that you complete, there is actually a best answer. And the best answer will give you additional items. Things like crystals, things like these chips, as well as even things like upgrade materials to further upgrade your characters or your STs. So there are so if you are not getting additional items and so on, don't be afraid to experiment with the choices, because a lot of these missions do have a best answer that gives additional items, which again includes chips. So I think that covers everything I want to say about pilots. Like, you know, how to analyze the pilots, which ones you would kind of want to you know, look into the details of to figure out, and you know, the use of this Bionic superconductor. Oh, there is one thing, I suppose, where you get them, right? The first one is through token exchange, which is you can trade 600 of the elite tokens for one Bionic superconductor once a month, roughly. So you get these from, if you get B rank and A rank characters enter at their full potential, they get converted to elite tokens. Okay. So that's one method. The other method, of course, is kind of purchasing them. I'm certain you can buy Bionic supercomputers, like right here, right? Pretty expensive though. It looks like it's like $25 for one. Almost ridiculous. Okay. Or $50. So, is it for one? Yeah, it looks like it. So it's $25 basically for one, or $50 for two. Yeah. Alright. And then the final method is through events. So if I go into campaign, let's say, click on Echoes from Beyond, the Steam store actually has a Bionic superconductor here for 600 cassettes. And similarly, the currently running Harvest Ops event has one, or two actually. So Harvest Ops, if I go to the event shop, you can purchase 2 Bionic superconductors here after you purchase the Blazer mech. Right? So long story short there is, if the event is still running right now, make sure you keep clearing or sweeping some clearance ops, because that's dropping these extra harvest emblems that you're using for the event. Okay. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you found this information useful to you. On that note, Nitro out.